Hello everyone, welcome. My 2019 presets are officially out as of right now. I'm going to give you a walkthrough of the presets as well as a bit of kind of an editing tutorial. And if you get them before Friday of this week, which is March 22nd, 2019 at midnight, you are able to actually get them for $20 rather than $30, which is really awesome. So if you're interested in picking them up, pick them up right now, save some money, save 33%. The other thing that you can do is rather than just buying just the preset straight out for $20 right now, you can go over to Patreon, and these presets are actually in Patreon. They were up actually a month ago or so, maybe 2 months ago, kind of sneaky. So they've been up there for a little while. And if you sign up for Patreon, which is $20 a month, you also get things like my full pricing document and walkthrough, as well as my contract and a full video about that, like 60 other wedding photography business videos, as well as a weekly podcast and a weekly video that comes out every single week. So the weekly podcast is kind of an Ask Me Anything style thing. And then you also get access to our members only Facebook group as well. That's actually doing a lot of really cool things. It's really interesting to see what happens when you get a lot of like-minded photographers kind of in the same place working together. It's a lot less, it's the happiest group I've ever been a part of, I think, as far as actually just productive, good input and good criticism. All right, so I'm going to start walking you through kind of what I've changed here. So these are up here are my 2018 presets, and I've kind of modified a lot of them as well as added a few new ones. So I've taken forward what was working and what I was using the most and what seemed to be working the best across the board. I think that's the most important thing for me, is that I really do just kind of want one preset that I can put on everything, and then just kind of call it a day at that point. That I just want everything to look and feel as cohesive as possible. So coming into the first one here, Shannon's wearing quite a red dress, so it does a lot of, it's a very punchy look, I guess, in more muted, in a white dress, dark suit type environment, which we'll kind of get to in a little bit here. It does react a little bit better. So in this specific instance, I would probably be doing something like this version 2. And quite honestly, that's kind of a one click and done. Like I might add a little natural contrast here by bumping up the exposure and down the black point, but I'm happy to deliver this image exactly as it is right there. I've also added black and whites, which I didn't have in the past year. Black and white is something that I'm kind of getting back into when it comes to just focusing specifically on the emotion of an image. I think it can add a lot of good, a lot of great things to a wedding gallery when you're clicking through and it's like great color, great moment. It has like a very specific role within that gallery, and it's getting you to focus on what's actually happening in the photo and not everything that's kind of around and distracting. Doesn't specifically work. It's fine on this image, but it's not really something that's better than the color version. My commercial image, or my commercial preset, is a lot more like my presets from last year that has a little bit more kind of that yellow wash. And it seems to work really well for pretty much everything I do commercially. I typically will shoot commercial stuff on auto white balance, which is counter to what I would do at a wedding day. Wedding day, I'm usually always shooting on warm or kind of the house with the shade white balance. Commercial, if I'm in a factory, if I'm somewhere else, I'm usually always just kind of shooting on auto white balance, or getting something that's like pretty close to it. And I usually stay on the cooler side. So this adds a little bit of that natural warmth back, but it does kind of amp up the warm tones of my wedding shooting a little bit more than maybe it should. And my travel preset is not specifically designed for skin tone. So as you can see, it does some crazy stuff to Mark and Shannon's skin. So I wouldn't use it specifically for this shot, even though I do like kind of how punchy it does make the dress. So in this image, this would be a V2, and I would be happy with that. It looks natural, it looks great, and I'm very happy. So moving forward, because this is kind of part of the same set, I know that I'm probably going to be starting with V2 here. And then to kind of go a little bit more in depth, what I'd be doing is that, as you can see, the mountain kind of in the background behind Mark's head here is disappearing a little bit. So I would add a little bit of shadow just so I can actually see their faces a little bit better. And then I'd be kind of knocking down the highlights like this to see if I can get a little bit of that mountain back, just to add the, I guess, ambience of the scene back. All right. Moving next, because the red dress, Shannon's red dress, isn't here anymore, I'm probably going to be relying more on my main color preset. I spell it with a U because I'm Canadian and we rely on the British thing. So that might look a little bit weird if you're from the States or somewhere else that spells it just OR. But I promise you it's spelled correctly for where I live. So yeah, this is pretty much like a final image that I'd be really happy with. I'll kind of scroll through the other ones. That's also a look that I'm totally happy to deliver as well. Black and white, again, it's fine, but I think the color in this image, because it is such a close image as well as the focus is very much just on them. I think is really good. A little bit too yellow. So if I was to use the commercial preset, I would probably click that and I would probably dial this back to about there. So that's kind of where I'd be shooting more of my commercial work, whereas my wedding work, I'm always kind of shooting up here. And then travel, no idea what that's going to do. Not so good. So back here, I would say I would be quite happy with this here. And then if you want to bring out more of kind of the shadows here, which I don't necessarily want to or need to do that, but if you wanted to, the secret is always, you can double click on all these to go back, is to kind of remove the contrast and amp up the shadows a little bit. And paint in that way. If you just crank the exposure, it's very noticeable that it's a spot adjustment, but you can do some very subtle kind of effects if you do kind of the negative contrast and positive shadows that hides a little bit more and meshes within the image. So I'm happy with that. I'd also be totally happy with this image here. Completely kind of depends on what you want to be doing, I guess, in your photography. You'll also notice that I'm a lot more underexposed in these shots than I typically am. Usually I'm shooting to kind of get everything exactly right in camera. With these images specifically, what I'm kind of going for is to just make sure that I get all the detail of the scene. And I know that I can kind of bring back what I need to afterwards. So what I did there was pretty much just amp the shadows up all the way and then highlights all the way down. This is a very dynamic range, a lot of dynamic range going on in this scene. So I want to make sure that I keep kind of all the sunset and the clouds and the mountains and everything, as well as them. So that works for me. This could also work for me, depending on kind of the overall color palette that you want to be delivering. I would recommend that if you kind of stick with either color or version 2 of the preset, to stick with that in kind of everything you deliver, because if couples are coming over through your Instagram and then inquiring for wedding photos and then booking you for their wedding, if your color's kind of all over the place, it's not really the greatest brand cohesive message to be putting out there. And you might get some people kind of pushing back with like, hey, we kind of liked your old style a little bit better. So really do kind of find something that you like that you can work with and stay within the lane of that for at least a little while. I don't mind changing and modifying and kind of growing every season, but try not to kind of change between too many presets all the time. Within kind of one calendar season, or even like a couple months, or even just a couple photos. So I'm digging this color. This is a really cool image, I think. This was actually part of, I went to Gabe McClintock's workshop out in Canmore, and he set the shoot up and he just brought some of his friends out. These images are all from my actual shoots. These next 2, 3, 4, these next 4 here are all from Gabe's shoot. And I think it's important, like regardless of where you are in your wedding photography career, to go out and just find the photographers that you like and book a workshop with them if they're booking workshops. Just like a one-day thing, to be in the same room as like 15 other people that all kind of, I guess it's similar to the Patreon members Facebook group, is that when you sit down and you're just kind of in the room with a bunch of like-minded people, you come up with some really, really great ideas really quickly. Whereas if you're kind of in the wrong room, or say like a WPPI crowd, and WPPI is great. It's the big wedding photography convention that was a couple weeks ago in Vegas. But there really is like there's people from all different aspects of all different types and styles of photography there, which is great, but also kind of hard for you to really specifically connect with anyone. But spending one full day with somebody that you really like and respect does so much for just your creative process. Like if you're feeling like you're stuck, or you've plateaued, or you just can't create the level of work that you're looking for in your mind, by sitting down for a full day with one specific person and being able to kind of pick their brain and really get an understanding of how they create and why they create the images that they do, is very cool. So I got a lot from that. I've also been to Sam Hurd's one-day workshop, which is also absolutely fantastic. He's a really good dude as well, and just does a lot of, I guess he's on the far end of what I would consider like, I would say I'm a little bit more traditional with a flair for creative. Sam is very much on the far end of creative, so there's a lot to learn from him as well. And I think it's also cool to kind of learn from people's backgrounds as well, that if they come from a similar background, so Sam specifically comes from like kind of music and that style of background, as well as press shooting and a few other things. But it's cool when you kind of come from the same place and you end up in the same place, and somebody's just like a couple of steps ahead of you. It's really cool to be able to kind of learn that if you're surrounding yourself with people that that are kind of in the exact same boat, it's very hard to push each other every week. But if there's somebody that you can look up to, somebody that's going to be pushing you, somebody that's just always like doing better, like amazing work that you can strive towards, I think that's a very cool thing to kind of become attached to. All right, so here we are. This was kind of a one-step click for me. I'm very happy with this image exactly as it is. This was shot with my 105 1.4. I'll run through a few of the other presets like this also. Kind of happy with that, but I really do kind of like the 2019 color the most out of them. Let's see. This is the winner, and I think that I would lose if I went to black and white. I'd kind of lose a lot of what's happening in here, so I might sprinkle in like one or two black and white images into a gallery like this, but for the most part I do kind of rely on color, and I like this exact look. All right, so again, a little bit underexposed. I'm kind of bringing out the colors here, and I really actually like the way that even though it's almost inaccurate color wise, I think this would be more of an accurate color rendition. I kind of really actually do like the way that this comes together. All right, I'm going to play it safe. So I think the other thing is that when you're doing actual work for clients is to always, if there's something that you like and it's on the very edge of what you think is acceptable, to dial it back and to go with something that is a little bit safer. So you're going to deliver your clients actually images that they want and that they love and adore. So I think that's a little bit closer to the colors and actually what's happening. So I'm going to leave it at that for there. But as you can see, like that these images, even though they are from different presets, that image and this image, they do go well together. That it doesn't feel like anything non-cohesive, like it's not too all over the place. Gonna start with color and see how that goes, even though it was unsuccessful the first time. I am okay with that. That looks really, really great for me. I'm very happy with how that looks. I'll try V2 just to give you guys the comparison. So that looks very natural, very real to life. This is a little bit more, I guess there's more art to it, I guess, overall, which I kind of am starting to like a little bit more, as well as kind of that gray fade in there as well. All right, so this is the travel example. So clicking on the travel for once. So my travel shots, primarily landscapes, and this was from a hotel room at the Emerald Lake Lodge in BC, and it is really a ridiculously incredible place. This is like probably the nicest hotel room you can get. It's a pano stitch that I did, and then put it into a DNG, that's what it's called. So if you do the panel merge in Lightroom, it makes it kind of the Adobe proprietary format, which is DNG. And like, this is like such a crazy scene. I'll play a little bit more with clarity, as well as vibrance and some other things when doing images like this. You can also, because it kind of starts to get dark in this side here. Another thing that I'll do is kind of back to this contrast down, shadows up to make adjustments. Just to add a little bit more color kind of in here. This is the avalanche path. So if in the winter, all the avalanches come down here and it's supposed to kind of like the pathway goes out and around this way if you're trying to walk around the lake in the winter. But yeah, very cool scene. And I just kind of like this generally as something that keeps all of my travel images looking at least roughly the same. I do go into Instagram, and when I'm posting for cell phones specifically, I change things up a little bit. But most of the time, if I'm printing anything, I'm doing it all from kind of this travel thing. All right, so next, going over here into 2019 color. And this is a little a little wild. So I'm going to kind of find at least a good point here, which is somewhere around there, I guess. Again, a lot of dynamic range happening. You can leave this really dark and moody if you want like that. I don't necessarily love the dark and moody when it becomes that dark and moody. But I actually kind of like the travel preset on this, and I'm okay with the level of dark and moody, even though you can't really specifically see faces. I really do like that. I'm going to bring the sky down just a little bit here, just so that you're able to see a little bit more of it. And I feel like that's kind of getting to my threshold of what I'm comfortable and happy with. And then maybe just bump it up a little bit more like that. So I'm happy with something like that. I'm going to move on to the next image. And then I guess like the other thing is that I'm always kind of going through a few images and then going back, jumping back like 5 images just to, I guess like have at least a perspective on what I can make an entire gallery feel. As you can see, not a whole lot of information in there, but that looks pretty dang good to me. This was definitely after sunset already. So that's why it's like really magenta. And I'm kind of cooling that down a little bit. And this is probably as far as I'd want to really push the exposure. So maybe a note for future self to get a little more in the ballpark and not have to protect the shadows or the highlights as much. But I think something like that looks really nice. And you can add a little bit more warmth back kind of to taste. Cool. 2 more images here, and then I will let you go on your way. And whether you'd like to be part of the Patreon and get all of those things, or you would like to be just getting the presets, that's totally fine as well. I didn't love, I guess like the other downside with when you're shooting kind of this under is that you can't 100% see everything that you're doing when you're culling and you're figuring out which images to include. So I just didn't love the expression in the last image. So this is really nice. There's a sign off to the side here that gonna get rid of, and I am super happy with this. This is one of my favorite images. It's just like, I don't know, it just came together so well, and this entire shoot is on my YouTube channel somewhere, and it just like came together so fast that we had, I think it was like 15 minutes to take all of the portrait images like wedding photo style, and then we did a change and we did kind of the engagement shoot at the end, because I knew that I'd rather have these images, these wedding images, than I would rather have the engagement session images. They still work, but these ones were just a lot better. All right. So very happy with these presets this year. Again, like if you want something more natural, V2. If you want something maybe not so natural, or a little bit more of kind of how I want it to be, is this color. Even though it kind of does bring things a little bit under, you just bump it up, and I think that it does really great and incredible things. So one thing that you're for sure going to want to make sure you're doing is shooting raw when using these presets. That they will work okay, or some of them will on JPEG, but make sure that you're shooting raw, both for like just, I think just good practice. Like cards are cheap enough now that you're able to actually just like buy a lot of storage and just shoot raw. And maybe some of the shoots that they come straight out of camera and you're totally happy with them, and you just use the JPEGs. But for the times that you're in really dynamic situations, or the times that you really want to use presets and kind of give a whole other look and feel to your images, it's a lot easier to do without the banding and breaking up that you would get if you were just shooting JPEGs. So yeah, these are my 2019 presets. I hope you enjoy them. Feel free to join Patreon if you want the presets, as well as all kinds of other stuff, Facebook members only group and a bunch of other stuff. Or you can just buy them straight out, but just get them before Friday when they're $20 rather than $30, because on Friday at midnight, March 22nd, they go up to $30. So I'll see you this week on the YouTube machine. Goodbye. I'm Taylor Jackson.